Hi, everyone. So glad you could join us today.
Perfect. Well, let's get started. We're going to do is let me switch my screens real quickly. So let's take a look at how to create an estimate within the program. I'm going to grab one of our project folders, and estimates can be created whether it's in a lead folder or a project folder. There's a couple of important parts about creating an estimate. You can use any one of our templates to help you create the right kind of estimate, or you can build one from scratch where you're adding your own specific information. At the very top, we're going to go through some of the basics. At the very top of your estimates, when you're inside a project folder, you'll see the reference here. So the project folder, if you've got multiple documents that you're working within a project, you can easily toggle between those folders from one folder to another, from one document to another. Here you have all your action buttons. This allows you to manually approve or decline your estimates. So a great example is you create an estimate, you send out to the client, maybe they've called you and said, we want to move forward. So you can, again, manually approve it. Ideally, you'd want them to be able to approve it online in the email that you sent them. But it does happen every so often that you have to manually approve. You can also turn on the automate function, the AI function to the program, where you can actually write down instructions or give it verbal instructions as far as what kind of an estimate you want to create, which is just a great feature. Once you've built out an estimate, it's been approved from the very same document, you then can create an invoice for that estimate as well. And then as you're working through your estimate and you're building it, before you send it to the client, you want to be able to use the preview window in here. We're going to look at that a little bit and give you a better example of how that looks. But you're going to want to design the information that you're sharing with them so that you're sharing the right information with them. And then obviously you'll be able to send it to them so they can review it and hopefully approve it. Within your estimates, up at the top in this section here, you can customize the information regarding your company. So for example, you want to make sure that the right address information about your company, maybe your license number. I've added a couple of custom fields in here. So generally, like for example, the phone number that sits in there for your business is just one big number. I turn that off, and then up here to the right, I hit what's called add another field, and I customize it. So I put the phone number here, and then I added the phone number, plus I was able to format it and add that information. I also put a link to the company's website because we always obviously want them to have that information if they're going through our estimates. Same thing here in the client's information box. There's a pencil up to the top right. If you need to customize their information or add, like, let's say, an additional email or maybe change the address. Sometimes you'll have a client that lives at their house, but you're doing work at a different property. And so you want to make sure that the right property address of where the project is on there. So you can make that, add that information on there. And then in this section, this is where we can tell the document what kind of work is being done. So in this case, we're doing a home remodel and a home addition for this particular client. We've put a due date. So we're going to give a due date of when this is good for. You can leave it blank, which basically just says, here's the estimate. It's good for, whenever. There is no expiration date on it. Sometimes when you have materials and price changes in materials, you may want to put a due date on there. It could be like a 10-day due date or maybe like a 30-day due date. It's completely up to you, but you can manage that information in there. So, okay, adding information to your estimates. This is where you get to create the kind of structure you want. First thing you want to do is look at how is it that you want to organize your information. So view by, if you click on view by none, all of this turns into just a big list of items where you can put the item, you can put the descriptions of the items and all that. If you want to create a more organized or structured list, you can do so by creating them by category. In other words, like installation. In fact, let's close these up so you can see installation. So here's all my installation sections. Here's all my demo sections. Here's my kitchen island. And when you've got your list kind of like this, you're like, okay, this is not in the right order. There's 6 dots to each column, or excuse me, to each category, as well as each item. You can click and hold on to that, grab it, and then drag it to the position you want it to be. So again, you can freely organize the list as you see fit, however you want to structure it. even within this list, if there's something that's extra, if you go to the far right, there's 3 dots. This is where you can duplicate that line. You can copy the information there. You can also move it to another section or simply remove it from your entire list altogether. So again, a lot of customization features in here. So in here, you're gonna generally, if you're working with categories, you're gonna have your category, you're gonna have your item. In the item, you can put an explanation of what that work is, what kind of material you're using, maybe the process. You can organize it like use bullet points, numbered points. You can even put a link to an external website and then save that. You'll be able to put in the information about your column headers. What information do you want to work on when you're creating your estimate? So to do that, what you want to do is go to your Customize tab here. You're going to see this list. I do recommend things like turning on your item description. That's the explanation about the item. Also showing the auto number. That would be that reference of the 1, the 1.1, the 2, and so on. You'd rather get a call from a client that says, hey guys, I have a question about item 3.5. Much easier to go down the list and find 3.5 than if they call and say, hey, what's a skip bin? Now you're having to go through the list to find that item and kind of explain it to them. And then in this section here, one of the things that I do recommend is type, quantity, unit cost markup, and unit price. So these 7 I do recommend being turned on, or these 6 I recommend being turned on. A lot of this other additional information is optional, up to you. Again, this is information that you're seeing generally for your eyes only. A lot of this information, we can put that information into the description box of the item. So you don't necessarily have to have a column that says what room is this particular item for, or the SKU numbers. SKU numbers is optional. I like the SKU numbers. So if you're going to a vendor's website to grab product information, pricing and all that, why not grab the SKU information while you're on the website and put it into your estimate? Doesn't necessarily mean you'll share that with your client, but it does make it a great option so that when you send out the estimate and the client approves it, you can create a purchase order from that approved document that now includes the SKU number for those items. So it does save you kind of an extra step when you're kind of preparing, let's say, documents like purchase orders, things like that. Okay, once you kind of got the format of what you're going to be using for the estimate and the type column, you can identify the information, the item. Is it a material related, labor? Maybe it's a combination of both material and labor. It's however you're going to price out that item. Or is it a product or service? You'll be able to put the quantity, and then you'll be able to put the definition of that quantity. What kind of a unit measurement is it? Like, is it a square foot, linear foot, cubic yards? Maybe it's a flat rate for a specific type of job, or it's, a certain amount of gallons. It's whatever you want to define it. If there usually is a preloaded list in here. If your definition of that unit is not here, you click on add unit type and you can manually type it in, so you can customize that list, which is really nice. And then in unit costs, this is where we want to put what's it going to cost us to buy the material. And then a lot of my pros, they want to know what their profit margins are. So we have a markup column here because we want to be able to see the difference between what we stand to gain versus what it costs in separate information. And again, remember, this is for our eyes only. In markup, one of the things you can do is if you click on the 3 dots to the right of this, if you click on set default value, this is where we can establish what that markup rate is going to be for the entire document. So let's say we shift to 35%. It allows us to price everything out and mark everything up at 35%. We still have the flexibility to go into any one line item, and I can still use that percent amount or change it to a fixed dollar amount, whatever I want to do. Let's say I maintain that same percent. I can then manually change that and either go up to whatever number I want to or go down if I'm trying to be more competitive, especially if it's like a big ticket item. I might be like a little bit thinner margins on it and be a little bit more competitive. but I got that flexibility where I can do the line item, a markup to it. It doesn't affect the rest of the document, which is great. And then a unit price, which is nothing more than this number plus this number gives us, this is what it's going to cost them. And then the total amount. The total amount will be the quantity multiplied by the unit price. So here we go, right? So here's all our information. Again, let's say we've kind of prepared our estimate. We filled out all the items, added all our descriptions, added our dollar amounts. At the bottom of our estimate, we should see our subtotal, which is our material and labor costs. And then we'll be able to see our markup. If the client is entitled to some kind of a discount, maybe you've offered them a discount because they're a past client. So in here, we can either put in a percent amount, like let's say a 20% discount or a 10% discount, or you can switch to fixed dollar amount and say, okay, I'm going to give you a $2,000 discount. If you decide like they have no discount, when you send this to them, this disappears. They don't see this. So you won't get those calls from your clients going, hey, I saw the discount and I didn't get anything. You didn't give me a discount. Not to worry about that. They won't see any of that. There is the tax line down here at the bottom. So if you are charging taxes on any of the items above, whether it be for material and or labor, it's activated once you've added your tax agency's information. So you want to go in here and add the tax agency, like let's say California state tax 7.75. The agency would be like, let's say the tax collection agency. And then we just save that. Once you activate that, then anything that you've assigned up above will be taxed in terms of material. So, okay. So we built this out. Now we know what our total is here. In some cases, some of my pros say, hey, I want to request an initial deposit. Perfect. So we're going to click on initial deposit. It'll give us a reference of the total amount of the document, of the estimate. We can ask for a dollar amount for a deposit, or we can say we want a percent. So most of you generally ask for a percent, anywhere from 35 to 55 or 50%. Let's say we say 35%. Here is our reference to that dollar amount against this. And as you can see, it's got these fractional numbers. What I recommend in the initial deposit request is once you've got that, change that back over to the dollar. It inverts these numbers, and then you can customize this information to where you can either round up or round down that number, making it a whole number, which I do recommend. And then in payment terms, go in here, click on due on receipt. So this lets the homeowner know that when you're sending out the estimate, there's an initial deposit required of this amount. It's due right away. So in other words, if we accept this estimate, we have to make arrangements to pay. And then the great thing about our program is you can allow for them either to pay you online, or you can still get manual payments where, let's say they want to write you a check, or maybe they want to Zelle you or Venmo you the payment. So again, you'll be able to record that information in here. We'll cover that in a little bit. Now, some of my pros at this point are like, okay, I just want to charge the deposit. As the work progresses and as we get to certain phases, I'm going to ask for a payment, and so on and so on. Some of my pros say, you know what, I want to build out a payment schedule from the get-go because I want to set the expectations. They'll build out. And again, all of these sections are customizable. So for example, let's say this first one is demo complete. Once we've completed that section, we need to get paid, right? Same thing with, like, let's say rough construction started. So once we start rough construction, again, we need to get paid for that because we need to buy materials. We need to pay our people. Same thing with like installs. So once we've started installs, we're going to ask for another payment here. And then finally at the end, work completed. So we're going to indicate this is the total due at the end. Again, same thing with these payments in here. Feel free to go in there and customize the payment, round down, round up, make them whole numbers. And as you notice, as I'm doing this, it's automatically recalculating the future payments without touching the previous payments. Again, a great feature. Last one we leave as is because that's the final amount that's due. And then you can put in here target dates, right? So let's assume that we're starting the project on next week, May the 12th. And so we're gonna, complete demo by the 23rd. And then we're gonna start rough construction, let's say June 2nd. And same thing with installs. We're gonna be in installs kind of at the end of June. And then finally, we're delivering the property mid-July, at the end of mid-July, right in that middle part. And so now again, we've set these kind of target dates of when these payments are going to be due on. So again, this is a great way to kind of set the right expectations with your homeowners. Now, here's the neat thing. Let's say this first part, right? They already paid us the initial deposit. We're in the work, we're doing the demo, and something happens where we're delayed. And even if we're on the 23rd, we can come back in here and push that date out. Or let's say we finished earlier, again, we can come back in here and move that date ahead of schedule, right? And let the client know, yeah, we're going to be finishing sooner than later, kind of thing. So again, great, easy way to kind of manage all this information. In this section here, you can attach files into your estimates. So files would be, let's say, floor plans, a PDF of a floor plan. Maybe they're pictures of the products you're going to use, the materials you're going to use, the appliances, flooring, countertops, things like that. Could even be like inspiration pictures. So it's basically anything you want them to see in that estimate, you'll be able to send that to them. And then down below, you have an option here of adding your terms and conditions to your estimate, right? Again, estimates can be viewed as a contract. So this is a great place to be able to add those terms and conditions, your payment policy, your cancellation policies, your change order policies. So whatever those conditions are, you can put them in here. You can, when you set these in here, let's say you copy and paste that information in there, you can also create templates so that you use that as your default setting. Up here at the set company defaults, if you click on this, if you go into terms and conditions for your company templates, you can set that template, that terms and condition templates here, as your template for all your estimates, all your invoices, retainers, purchase orders, and change orders, basically all your financial documents, so that this information automatically appears here. And again, much like before, we can format this however we want. We can use bullet points, numbered points. Again, we could put links to external websites if we want to do that. And so again, you can organize this information. Underneath this section, you'll have your memo. If there are any notes that you're sending to the client, let's say a reminder. Again, let's say, for example, this is a lead you're working with, and they have told you, hey, we have an interior designer that we want to bring into the mix, and they're going to be helping us with the designs and the selections. Perfect. In the memo, great place to remind them, please don't forget that selections are due by X amount of date. So have your interior designer coordinate with us to let us know what those are, so we can coordinate with our installers, right? So things like that you can add into the memo section. And then finally, down at the bottom of the document, they'll be able to see your signature here, and then they'll be able to sign digitally down here as well. So again, this is an estimate that we've created to send out to a client. Let's say we love this format for the kind of work we're going to do. We've got all of the information here about our categories, our items, our explanations, and we want to use this for future references. We want to use the same setup, so we want to create a template for this. If we go to actions, we can save this as a template. In here, we would simply rename it or name it, whatever kind of work we want to do, so that anytime we do that work, it's going to pull up this information. We're going to turn all of these on because we want all of the same conditions for each of these sections to be the same as is seen here in the document, and then we'll save it. So again, this is a great way to, as you're creating your estimates, not only can you create an estimate, but you can also create a template for that as well. So as I had mentioned before, when you're working on creating your templates or your estimates, here to the right, you've got the AI function. So if you click on this, I can type in everything as simple as like remodeling, 3-bedroom, 2 bathroom, 1,200 square feet. Yes, having issues typing, sorry. And as you do that, whatever it is you want to tell it, it'll build that into the estimate for you. So it'll generate that information in addition to, if you've already got information here, it'll add it to the template. So it's just a great way. Sometimes it can do it like within seconds, and sometimes it'll take a minute or two to add the information. But again, once it's kind of figured out what you need, and remember, I gave it some very simple explanations and details of the kind of work, and it's given me, okay, hey, there's demo involved, there's electrical, there's plumbing, HVAC work, any of this stuff, you know, kind of going to go in line with the work you do. So everything that does, and look, it even broke down the bathrooms, right? For each one. So for bathroom number 1, vanity, bathroom number 2. So all of the information that I need, I just go through this list and go, yes, all of this works. So I want to add all 24 items to my estimate. So it now adds all that information into this section, which is great. So again, that's one great way. Even in that AI mode, not only can I type it in, but you can also turn on the microphone and verbally give it the explanations as well. And so it'll do the same thing. It'll interpret what you're explaining, and it'll show you, give you a preview window. If everything looks good, or if you want to remove certain things, then you remove them, and then you add the information that you need to your estimate. Here you have my item section. So you can use what's called the Clipper tool to import products. This is great if you're going to a vendor's website, and let's say there's specific types of products that you want to add to your estimate or to your estimates in general. And so you can import them, and then if you want to use those specific products or items, you can add those fixtures, appliances, materials into your estimate. And then you also have access to what's called your brand categories. You have the average price catalog, which will show you all the different categories. Let's go into appliances, and it'll show you like an example of a number of different appliances. Let's say you are looking to add a 24-inch dishwasher. So you could go anything from the basic kind of average price to the medium quality, all the way up to kind of the higher end. And it gives you an explanation of, like, you know, in this case, these pricing are really about Thermador, Viking, Wolf type products. And these are kind of the price ranges. So again, this could be an allowance that you're saying, okay, for your remodel, we're putting an allowance for a 24-inch dishwasher of, you know, $2,300. And so now if the homeowner goes out, and let's say they're out shopping and they go to the, you know, one of their local stores, and they find something that's more than that, then you're simply, in the estimate, they've already approved that $2,300. The additional amount, obviously you can create a change order that has that difference to where you're charging them for that difference, which is fine. And that way you can collect on that difference. So again, kind of a great way to be able to use this. Also in the brand catalog in here, you have access to Home Depot's catalog. So you can sign up as a Pro Extra. So you can sign in if you have an account with Home Depot, sign in, identify which is your store. So everything that's pricing related will be in reference to that local store, including the availability of material, which is super important. Again, you go through the same process of going through here and to see if you can find what you're looking for. When you find what you're looking for, again, if there's an item you want to add, you just simply click on the plus and it adds it to your estimate. You'll notice that on some of these products, you'll see the live pricing. So this is the retail price. If you click on live price, it'll give you what the price is to you as one of their preferred pros. So if there is any kind of a discount, it'll show you whatever the discount is. If not, it'll tell you, hey, that's the price, whether it's for you or the homeowner, it's the same price, like you see in these examples here. So, okay. And then also, let's say again, you're using, or you've got an estimate here, and there's information that maybe is sitting in one of your other templates that you would like to use for this estimate. So you click on templates, it'll show you your templates here. And you can go in there and click on whichever template. It'll show you all the categories and items of your template. And so again, you can add, if you add the category, it adds not only this heading, but everything in here, because you're basically saying, look, I want to add all of it into there. So let's go back up here real quickly. For example, let's say, yep, we missed this one. We don't have really this preliminary item in there. So it'll add it here. And again, the neat thing about this part is I can grab this and go, okay, let me move this up. I want this to be the top line item. And I just reposition it within my list. So again, you have access to your templates where you can grab information. So, and you can even look at some of the recent estimates where you're like, okay, you know what? I did a really great estimate for Lee. He had some really good items in there. Same thing. I can either grab individual items and go, let me add this information in there, or let me add the entire section into there because I'm missing it in my estimate, right? So there's my interior painting item. So I want to add that in there. So we'll put that above this section. There we go. Uncategorized simply means all the items in here, they don't belong to any one particular category. So I do recommend when you see that, go in there and figure out a category, whether it's a miscellaneous category, you know, whatever it might be, and then choose that category. I wouldn't leave it like the way it had before. I would create a label for it. So, okay. Now, again, let's say we've got everything set up. We're going to go into the preview mode here. And this is where we get to define what we're sending to the client. So up here in the settings, you have access to your pricing, columns, item details, and approval. In pricing, you get to determine how much detailed pricing you want to show them, right? Category pricing would be just these totals in here, and then a detail breakdown. This is the detail breakdown, the explanations of these sections, right? You may want to have that on and show that. That way, it'll kind of answer any questions they may have. And then the totals. In columns, this is where you get to define things of like, maybe you don't want them to see the markup or the unit cost, right? Maybe you're okay with type. Lets them know this is a material item, labor item, another like a product or service. So again, you get to go through here and kind of figure out what information you want to share with them. Okay. Once you've got this all set up, it's time to send it to them. There's their email. Here's a copy goes to you. If you want, you can send it to them as both an email and a text message. So if you have up here in their phone number, it'll send them a text that says, hey, you got an estimate. There'll be a link to that text message as well. Or you can say, you know what, I want the estimate to be attached as a PDF document in case they want to print it out. And then all I do is just hit send and off it goes to them, right? Okay, that's basically kind of the ABCs of how to use an estimate, including the AI functions within an estimate.
So we have a few questions. And if we don't get to everyone's questions, I'm sure we can do some follow-up. But we have, can we have the deposit to be a fixed, like a saved percentage every time an estimate is created instead of adjusting each time?
Yes. Now, in order to do that, you're going to go to your company folder, your company tab here, and you're going to go into your documents. So let me go back here a step. You're going to go into your company. You're going to click on templates. You're going to go into your documents folder. And you would want to go into your template for that, for all your documents or that one specific document. And at the bottom, what you're going to do is when you're creating your payment schedules, is that's where you're going to identify all that information. So again, this goes back to see how this is already preset. So every time I use this template, it's got this the way it's laid out here with my completion stages or start stages plus my amounts, right? So it's automatically set to, they're going to be whole numbers or they're going to be maybe like percents. Again, depending on how I structured this.
Great. Let's get to two more since I know we have a lot to cover. Is the customer able to approve estimates on their phone or only on the desktop?
Yes, both. So they can view the estimates. Again, if you send it to them as a text message, they can click on that link. They can review the information. And if all looks good, they can, at the bottom of the document, hit sign, and they're going to use their phone or tablet and their finger on there to just initial their name or sign their name. And then you'll get an email. That's the neat thing, is once they approve it, you get an email that says, congratulations, clients accepted your estimate.
Great. And let's get to one more. Will the client get notifications to date changes made automatically from the payment schedule?
Great question. No. So you want to, there is a tab on there that you can put date reminders in that payment schedule section. Otherwise they don't. Everything is manual. So if there's any changes, like let's say again, you had a target date for that demo in 3 weeks from today, and everything worked out good and you finished ahead of schedule, as you change the date, you will have to either call them, email them, text them to let them know, or even if you're like face-to-face talking to them, just explain, we're going to finish early, so we're going to be sending you an invoice earlier than expected.
Great. Okay. I
Perfect.
will let you continue.
Awesome. Let's go back into our project folder. And in here, this time what we're going to do is we're going to look at our bid manager. So a lot of our pros, obviously, as you guys are working on estimates, one of the things you want to do is be able to send out bids to your contractors, subcontractors, right? So for example, you may have a subcontractor that's doing the center island and the cabinets. And so you may create a bid for them. In here, you're going to put what it's for, what room it's for. It'll have your company information here. You'll have when is that bid due by, date there. So you have to find that date. Let's say it's due by next week. You can also set this as a reminder to them that if they haven't sent their bid in the day before it's due, they'll get an email that says, hey, don't forget you have a bid request, so send in your information. You'll be able to identify what trades are involved. You can select one or multiple trades that are in your system as far as who you want to get these kinds of bid requests. So these are linked to your subcontractors in those categories. Then you have the client's address. Some of my pros say, look, I don't want to show my subs, no problem, what the address is. Click on the eye and turn off the address. That way they won't see it. If you're okay with them seeing your client's address, then leave it turned on. And then here you'll be able to identify what date that project's going to start. So again, I think we said that the bid was due by the 16th. We're going to be starting the project on the 26th, let's say. And then in here, in the scope of work, I get to explain what the work entails. What is it that I need them to build? Even what kind of material. Again, I can format this however I want and even put links to that explanation, or I can even attach files. They could be like floor plans. One of the things that I often kind of coach my pros into, one of the things I would do, if you don't have a floor plan, attach pictures of the room. That way your subs will have a reference as to what the current layout looks like. And then if you've got, if that layout's going to be configured differently, maybe add a floor plan that you've created for that room that shows the new distribution of, furniture and appliances and cabinets, the center island, all of those things. Again, so they have a point of reference as to the area. So once has this been created, same thing as before with like estimates, you have a preview window. In here, you can go in here and make sure that these are all turned on. Again, you'll be able to see the information here of what you've put into the bid request. And if there's anything missing, you finish it out or fill it out. And then from here, all you do is go send the bid request. It'll show you a list of all your subcontractors that you've added to the system. You have to just manually go in here and select from the list of who you want to send this out to, right? It says you're sending out 5 total bids. Perfect. So we just sent them all out. And now when we look into that same bid room, this is our bidders, right? This is who's bidding on all this work. And if you guys have like some subcontractors, they're not really good at technology. They'll get your email, they'll read your email, they'll read this email, and they're going to call you up. And they go, hey, boss, I've got the number for you, and here it is. Great. So you can go in here and submit the bid on their behalf. So it'll open up their bid. You can add their price of what they gave you, plus whatever notes they gave you, if any, of the work they're going to be done, or maybe the material they're going to use. And then once you have that information, let's say we put in here $5,500. In here, we can put using high quality material, and then we're going to submit for the bidder. Now, if they call you and say, no, I'm not bidding on this job, boss, there's no way I can do it, just click on decline for bidder. But we submit. Let's put this here. Perfect. And then we can also send them an email, right? Has been submitted. And there we go. So now their bid is now officially set in the program, and it's already on there. So there's our line. We can see the amount here. It's been submitted. We're still waiting for these other 4 to submit. Again, a great way to kind of centralize your information and to track the bids. Once we select the winning bid, we can then kind of either add that information to our estimate, or we can kind of compare it to what we estimated. And if we need to make a change order, then we can move accordingly. So again, this is how our bid system, our bid manager works, which is great. Any questions on this section, Andy?
Let me see if we have any questions on bids. When a subcontractor sends a bid back, how can I set this up so their total automatically goes to my estimate?
You can't, because remember, if it's even if it's one subcontractor, what you're doing is you're getting the information. You want to review it to make sure that it's according. It's not just about price. That's important. But if they're putting details about the materials they're using, you want to make sure you review that to approve it. That way, if there's anything, you don't want anything kind of slipping through the cracks, and then all of a sudden the sub says, hey, that's my bid said I didn't have to do this or this part or that kind of, this is the kind of material I'm using. And so that's going to avoid any of those traps. So you don't have that. It automatically goes into an estimate. You have to approve it, manually approve it.
Great.
Anything else?
No, I think on bids now.
Okay. Again, staying within our project folder, let's go over takeoffs. This has come up quite a bit. A lot of our pros want to know about the takeoff systems, how to use that. So in your project folders, like in your lead folders, you can access the takeoff tools. For those tools, you'll need floor plans. So it can be like a PDF file of a floor plan. It can be a floor plan you create within the Houzz Pro software, or it can be a floor plan that either the homeowner, like the client's given you, or maybe an architect has provided you with the floor plan. And basically up here at the top left, this is where you can manage all the amount of your folders. So all the documents that you're adding to that client's folder, you'll be able to see all those floor plans. And any one of these documents can be one page. They can be 10 pages or 100 plus pages deep. Doesn't matter. You can have as many folders in here, and you can toggle from one to the other. So it'll upload all the floor plans that are in that file, which is great. So some of your floor plans may be like outdoor related, where there's landscaping involved, hardscaping parts. Others may be structural, where it's, you know, the framing of the house or even the siding and the roofing. Once you've uploaded the right document, when you've got multiple pages in that document, generally like 5 or more pages, 5, 10, 20, 50, 100 pages, I do recommend going to the bottom right of the pages that you're going to be working on and clicking on the pin. So I'm going to click on, let's say, these 2 pages here, and then switch to the pin page mode. And that way you'll only see those pages that you want to work on, that you want to use. So imagine if you had a folder that had 10, 20, 50, 100 pages in there. I mean, that's kind of tricky to go through all those pages to find each one. Sometimes things slip through the cracks and you lose information because you can't find it. So best tricks of the trade are click on the pin for that page so you can have that information readily available in this window. Okay, once you have your information here, I do suggest initially learning about the page settings down below. So the system defaults to a 1-point line. Sometimes, like this is a good example. So like on the right side, you can see kind of the thicker lines here. And here on the left, they're kind of thinner lines. With the thinner lines, you shouldn't have a problem with the 1 point. It's with the thicker lines like you see here, sometimes the 1 point isn't big enough. It gets lost in there. So what I do recommend is switch to a 2 point. 4 is really thick, but again, you can kind of play with them to see which works best. But I think optimally, like 2 point line is a great line to use. And then the page scale. Always confirm that this scale matches the same scale that's on the floor plan. So, and a lot of you guys know how to find that. Let me go back to here. You know where to find that scale on the page. And so let's say, for example, here, let's zoom in a little bit more. So here it says 1/4 inch to 1 foot, same as what you see here. System's really good about kind of detecting the scales, but every so often, every once in a blue moon, you'll find a scale. Like you'll be doing some measurements and the scale just doesn't look correct. In other words, like if it's something should be like 1,000 square feet, but it's showing as 100, what's happened is the scale that's here is not the correct scale. So what you'll want to do is manually go into the bottom left and set the scale. You need to have a clear measuring point somewhere on the floor plan. So for example, let's use this one here, the 8 feet, 3 inches. We click on one end, we go to the other and just double click. And we're going to tell the system that's 8 feet, 3 inches, and then to set the scale. So then it says, okay, that's 2 inches for every 8 feet, 3 inches, which is very comparable to the 1/4 inch to 1 foot. Very close. So again, now we can say, okay, yeah, this is reliable. It should be fine. By the way, if you've done measurements and again, you finally realize, hey, those are not the right measurements because that's not the right scale, I would not delete the measurements you've taken. When you recalibrate the scale, those measurements will automatically adjust for you. So that way you don't have to start the whole process again. Okay, at the top here, you've got 3 measuring tools. You have your rectangle, polygon, and length tool. Whichever one of these that you use, let's say a rectangle, once you've selected the measuring tool, you want to tell the system what kind of measurement you're going to do. So you either want to create a new group that explains that measurement, like let's say foundation, right? Cement. In the category, we're going to put, again, foundation. And then we're going to create a color with it. So again, let me put here, like, let's say foundation. We're going to be doing the cement measurement. Here, we're going to do, again, the foundation. So there's our foundation. And then here, we're going to select, let's say, orange. We're going to add this to our favorites. That means we're going to be using this a lot, not only for this client, but for a lot of our clients, if not all of our clients. And this is a square foot measurement that we're going to put on there. All right, so now we're going to zoom out. So in here, what we're basically going to do is go, okay, because this is a rectangle, right? It's just measuring everything in that area that we're measuring. So that tells us, okay, that's 1,182 square feet. Remember, this is a flat measurement. So if there's volume to your measurement, you can click on the cube and go, okay, there's, let's say 5 inches of thickness in that concrete. And so again, here's our flat number. We're adding in the 5 inches of volume. So it changes that flat number into 18¼ cubic yards of material, right? So that's the information I'll need when I'm going to buy cement bags and rebar and the ties and the wood boards and all that. So basically that's what you're going to be using in terms of, or needing in terms of materials for that measurement. We also have a deduct tool. This is great if there's a certain part of a measurement where you're like, okay, we're not going to be pouring any cement or any material here, or we're not going to be adding any siding or roofing material there. As an example, let's use this bathrooms. We're going to go, okay, let's exclude this area from this measurement. So it deducts that area's measurement from this total right here. And that also will adjust your, whether it's square feet, cubic yards, whatever the other volume measurement is as well. And then you have a count tool. Same thing with count tools as with any of these three measurements. Once we select that, we're trying to count things. So in this case, we may be trying to count like the posts or the outlets or the vanities, some number of what we're looking to do, let's say studs. So again, we can identify one there, here, here. So it's going to let us know how many studs we need. And when we're creating our list, we can put the dimensions of our studs. So rather than it just show here as studs, we can actually indicate what the size of those studs are. So we know exactly which ones are which, right? Because we know they come in different sizes sometimes. Okay. And then finally here you have your annotate. Annotate is great because this is where you get to add notes about something that maybe isn't clear for you, confirm, post, whatever it is, and you can add it to there and it stays in this page of the floor plan. And as you saw me do before, I can go to my move, I can click on any one item and delete that from that section, right? And then we can eliminate that. So again, like if we've made a mistake or we want to redo something over, I can quickly click on that item and it removes it from the information. So same thing, we can also use the undo to go back steps. We can also rotate floor plans. If they're available, we can rotate that as well. So, and this is how the takeoffs work. Once again, once we're done measuring this information, we can then go into review and estimates. It'll show us the review page. It'll show us what is it that we measured or counted. Here's the quantities and then the units of each one, the unit definitions of each one. And then we can go from here. I can download this information into an Excel spreadsheet, or I can go straight into an estimate. And I've had this happen before where we go, okay, let's create a new estimate just for my takeoff measurements. And let's say I already created another estimate in the system. So again, if you look up here, it says, hey, you've got several estimates, you got two other estimates in here. So with all three of those documents, I can go back to actions and go, you know what, let me merge all those documents. In fact, let me merge this one with my takeoff estimate. And so now what I end up doing is consolidating my documents into one, right? So it brought all that information into here. And again, now I'm consolidating all the information. So go, gives you a lot of flexibility to be able to kind of manage this information. And that's takeoffs in a nutshell. Andy, any questions about takeoffs?
Yes. Can you upload a floor plan you forgot to add without creating a whole new takeoff?
Oh, yeah. So again, let's go back into the takeoffs. Again, in that project folder or in that document folder manager, I can continue to upload as many additional documents. And that does happen. Sometimes you start off with one document. So in here, you can upload more documents to this section. Right here. So if you click on upload, it'll ask you, okay, where's your document? And so you simply find where the additional floor plan is, and then just upload that floor plan. Great. And you go back to your folder manager, and there it's uploading for you right now.
Perfect.
Any other question?
Yes, one more question so we can keep things moving. Can you upload more than residential, such as commercial, multifamily, school building plans?
Yes. So this has versatile applications. You can do residential, commercial, industrial, even government type floor plans, all you need is just a PDF file of a floor plan. The rest is up to you, however you want to manage the information. So it doesn't matter what sector of construction it is.
Perfect. All right. I think that's it.
Perfect. Let's go into and take a look at contracts. So again, let's go back into here. Some of our pros, they have contracts that they use when they're sending out estimates, meaning contracts is a separate document from the estimate. Some of our pros will include the contract within the estimate as an attached file. Others say, nope, I'm going to send both documents out independent of each other. So in your contract folders, within the project folder, we have a template that you can use. And again, you can look through our template. It's got kind of like general, it's this one right here, the general contractor contract agreement. So you can use that one. It'll give you kind of general ideas of everything that is your terms and conditions, your scope of work, all your different policies, things like that. This document you can customize and change it as needed. Again, this is just kind of a reference as to how a contract can look. So this is one way. The other way is you can create your own contracts. In other words, where you're importing the information in here. So if you have a previously used contract on a PDF file, you can literally copy all the information in that file, doesn't matter however many pages, and then paste it into here, and then you can reformat it into here to create your contract template for here. And again, we've got like signature lines that you can add in sections. So again, like it'll have your signature line here, as well as the client signature line, and it allows you to add additional signature lines if it's, let's say, a husband and wife and you want them both to sign. So again, these are our contracts. And again, you can kind of format these however you want to structure them, which is really great. Let's go back to this one real quickly. That's kind of how our contracts work. Any questions about our contracts?
No questions so far on contracts.
Okay, perfect. And then let's go into invoicing. So I get a lot of questions about invoicing and how that works. Let me walk you through kind of a couple of processes. First thing is when you're creating an estimate, we're sending it out to the client for review and approval. Let's say the client has approved it. So let's use one of these. This is where we want to create the invoice from this particular document. So again, let's say this is the estimate we sent out to the homeowner. We're going to mark this as approved because they've reviewed this and approved it. And so now from this document, you can say, I'm going to take the entire document and I'm going to create an invoice. Or you can go by sections and do line item invoicing, right? Let's just invoicing for these first couple of sections, and then we'll come back and do the rest as the work is being done in a certain kind of like progression of how that work's being done. So again, you've got a number of ways that you can do that. So let's say we do the entire document. It's going to say, okay, that's the total amount. Is that what you want to invoice? You say yes. Or again, we can go in here and go, okay, of this amount, let's just invoice 25%. The system will figure out which 25%, whatever that number is. So again, that'll be completely up to you. Once we've got this invoiced, see, it says estimate converted into document. You still have your estimate reference. It now says that an invoice has been created, and then an invoice has been created for that document. And it's got these links here because it means this document is connected to your estimates. So there is that connection. So this is one way of creating that invoice, which is what I would recommend. That way you don't have your numbers being duplicated, like your revenue numbers or sales numbers being duplicated. Because if you create an estimate and then you go into that client's folder and go, okay, let's create an invoice for them, you're basically creating a second document. So you're duplicating the amounts that you're supposed to be collecting in terms of revenue and sales. So you're just inflating your numbers, and that's what you want to avoid. So only time you would create a separate independent document is if you guys did work that was outside the scope of the estimate, and now you're charging the client extra to recover that additional money that they want to spend on, let's say they're doing upgrades on material, right? They don't want the XYZ countertop. They want the top of the line countertop. And so we can do a change order and then invoice them from there as well. So again, that in that case, you're again connecting one document to another. So any questions about invoices? And I do want to go back to the invoice real quickly. Briefly touched on it in the estimate section, and that is the online payment part. So again, I do recommend that you guys set up your online payments. This is an additional option for the homeowner to pay you. They can use either a major credit card or send you an electronic check payment through ACH and pay you that way. If you set this up and you, there are 2 disclosures to those sections. So if they pay you using a major credit card, there's a 3.6% processing fee. If they do an ACH payment, it's a 1.1% fee. In setting this up, there are 2 disclosure boxes. You want to check those boxes if you want your clients to pay those processing fees. Otherwise, you'll have to assume the cost of paying those fees. So make sure that those disclosure boxes are checked when setting this up. Any questions about the online payments?
No questions about online payments. We did have one question about contracts. Are you able to add a watermark to a contract?
No watermarks. Yes, not yet.
Great.
And then let's dive into QBO integration.
Yes, that is my forte. So let me just get my screen shared here. Okay, so everyone should be able to see my screen. Houzz Pro's integration with QuickBooks Online. So you can connect your Houzz Pro account to your QuickBooks Online account. We only integrate with the online version of QuickBooks. Preferred on QuickBooks Online subscription is going to be the Plus version that enables purchase order sync from Houzz Pro. So I'll give you just a brief overview of the integration, how it looks, getting set up, and then talk about what documents, how they sync to QuickBooks, what it looks like in QuickBooks, and then what we offer in terms of setup and support for your QuickBooks Online integration. So in Houzz Pro, you would come right over here to your financial hub, and you'll see under accounting, you've got the QuickBooks Online dashboard. When you click on that, if you are not connected, you will see this screen with a little help video and a few settings for you to check in your QuickBooks account, and then your connect button right here. So you'll want to make sure that you have automated sales tax set up in QuickBooks. You'll want to make sure a few settings are turned off. We've got little articles here if you need guidance on how to do that on the QuickBooks side. And then you have, if you want purchase orders to sync from Houzz Pro, make sure that feature is turned on in your QuickBooks account. And then you simply connect directly to your QuickBooks account. Once you are connected, you will have your mapping page and your general settings page. So you've got, well, this essentially would come after you take care of all of your mapping, but this is your historic sync date. So let's say you connect today, but you need to push documents and payments transactions from January 1st to current over to QuickBooks. So you would simply just adjust your sync date right here. And then you've got some other mapping options here. If you want to record sales receipts in QuickBooks, meaning you take a retainer payment or you take a payment against an estimate, you can opt to have that payment sync over as a sales receipt. It will show as a liability. You'll see the money in your bank register, but it will show as a liability in your financial reports until it's applied to an invoice, and then it becomes true earned income. We've got your bank account mapping here. This is going to be your checking account where you are physically depositing or receiving payments from clients. Your retainer deposit account, this is ties into that sales receipt. So you want to make sure if you're not going to use the Houzz Pro default account, that you select a liability account in your QuickBooks account. This also, you have the option for unapplied payments if you don't want to deal with showing the deposit or the retainer as a liability. You can simply show it as income. It would be unapplied cash income in QuickBooks until, again, it's applied to an invoice, and then it becomes product or service income. You've got your bill pay accounts here. So when you're recording payments to vendors in Houzz Pro, you've got the checking account you're paying your vendors from, and then the preferred credit card account. We've also got a few other features here, some tax mapping if you'd like to track your vendor paid tax you're paying to your vendors, or at a retail store, something to that effect, your accounts payable. And then we've got the chart of accounts mapping. Now, a fun note, we are introducing for our contractors custom mapping for products and services. So you will be able to, currently we have your default income for materials, your default expense or cost of goods sold for materials, and the same for mapping, meaning all products, all services go to the same income and cost of goods accounts. Soon, very soon, I'm working very hard on it, we will have custom mapping. So you can break out different, let's say you have a flooring department, or you want to track lighting, or you want to track demolition sales, handyman division. You'll be able to break out your specific categories and pick and choose the income and cost of goods accounts in QuickBooks that you want those to go to. What that does is it gives you a more detailed profit and loss statement. So you can say, okay, here's how I'm doing in flooring sales. Here's how my handyman division's doing, something to that effect. We've also got document sync exceptions. If you do not want purchase orders syncing over to QuickBooks, you can simply just turn those off and still utilize them in Houzz Pro, but not have them sync to QuickBooks. Maybe you use bill.com or something on the QuickBooks side. You can turn that off. And the same with change orders. You can turn off change order sync and handle those directly in QuickBooks. The final setting right here is going to be splitting cost from markup in your QuickBooks account. What that simply is that you will have in your QuickBooks estimate, you would have a line item for the product and then a separate line item with the product name and the markup for it. So if you want to see that broken out in QuickBooks, you can have that split out. And we've also got vendor mapping here. If you have vendors that already exist in your QuickBooks account, you can simply map specific vendors in Houzz Pro to specific vendors in your QuickBooks account. And we will have project to customer mapping rolling out soon, something else that we're working on, so that if you have, maybe you've used QuickBooks for many years, you have clients set up in there, you could then select your project in Houzz Pro and link it up to the specific customer in your QuickBooks account. Okay. All right. So going back to the dashboard. So we created the QuickBooks Online Sync dashboard to enable you, the user, to be able to troubleshoot or see the sync status of your specific documents, payments, things like that. You'll see here we have up to date, so it last synced today, or I'm sorry, the 6th, because I haven't created any recent documents. You'll see down here you've got your bill payments. Again, payments are recorded on POs in Houzz Pro. In QuickBooks, it is a bill payment. So you can see here, I chose to not sync this to QuickBooks. So it says, what the detail is right here. We've got sync complete on these documents, my proposal, purchase order, and my vendor bill. You have all of your filters up here that you need. And then if, let's say that there was a sync issue, let's say this proposal I synced over to QuickBooks and then accidentally deleted out of QuickBooks. I go record a payment. We've now got an error message. You'll see up here a red bar indicating that there's sync issues with a link to click. And then under the details, it will tell you the specific issue or sync issue. Maybe the books were closed in QuickBooks and an older document can't be pushed over. So we designed that so you can troubleshoot yourself and not have to get on the horn with support and wait for somebody to try and figure out how to fix it. Okay, so let's jump into a document. We'll see how it looks on the QuickBooks side. So I have here my proposal. In each document, proposals, invoices, and purchase orders, you will see a sync status indicator in the document. When I first create a document, it does not sync to QuickBooks. It is in draft mode. So you have a few options. You can click the not ready for sync and just sync the draft version. Also, when this proposal is approved, when a payment is recorded on any document, when an invoice is marked issued, that will sync it over to QuickBooks. So there's some actions that automatically push it over for you. Your client approves this proposal, same thing. Or you can just sync the draft version. And that sync status will, let's see, there we go. Usually it'll say sync in progress, and then it will say, of course, sync complete. That's what we want to see. Again, if there's an issue or an error or a reason that this document could not push to QuickBooks, it will show red and say failed to sync with a link to your dashboard. So you can easily go to the dashboard from here and see what the issue is. So let's go over, I'm going to jump over to QuickBooks so you can see that proposal. And there we go. It's right there, document number, everything. It'll have the same details that are on your proposal in Houzz Pro will be on the estimate in QuickBooks. Now let's see if we want to log a payment. So we are going to say they paid by check. I'm going to go to the 20th. And of course, you can send a receipt to your client, change your reference number, all of that. We're going to say done. So you've got your payment information down here, of course. Some of you had asked about the activity stream. That's down here at the bottom of the document. And let's just jump over to our QuickBooks account. And let's see, of course, maybe my payment hasn't pushed over yet. So what you'll see, because I mapped to sales receipts, you would see a sales receipt here in your QuickBooks account under the client. And then, yep, there we go, right, sync in progress. And then again, once that is complete and updated, you would see the sync complete. And if we come here to our QuickBooks bank feed, okay, there we go. So now you have that match right there. We've got our sales receipt and you can just go ahead and click match. With the QuickBooks integration, you want to make sure you are matching your Houzz Pro transactions. The biggest issues I see are when a bookkeeper or an admin person or somebody's going into QuickBooks and just categorizing and adding transactions that technically should be matched. If something is not matching in your QuickBooks bank feed, you want to make sure you figure out why. Lump sum payments. If two clients pay you online the same day, you will have one lump sum deposit through your bank. You can simply click any transaction, click the match button in QuickBooks, and then, select those 2 payments so you can match them up appropriately. And we have more information on that. If you have further questions on the QuickBooks bank feed, please contact support. We can send you some how-to videos on that so you understand fully how it works so you don't have a mess in your QuickBooks account. So the last things I wanted to mention with our QuickBooks integration is we do offer 30 days of free support if you are new to the integration and if you have never utilized one of our integration experts. So you have that at your disposal. Please use it. Please have your accountant schedule a call so you can learn how it works, how they can learn how it works, and you get set up properly from the get-go. Outside of that, we do offer the QuickBooks integration support as an add-on to your account.
I have a question, Andy. Something that a lot of my pros ask me about QBO is the information going from Houzz Pro to QuickBooks, is it two-way, one-way? How's that information flow?
It is one way. So all of your project-related documents, financials, everything should be created in Houzz Pro. And then you've got your 3 documents that push to QuickBooks: estimates, purchase orders, and invoices. You've got retainer payments. You've got estimate and then invoice payments. And then for the vendor side, when you record payment on PO, it will create a vendor bill or vendor invoice and a bill payment against that in QuickBooks. So anything done directly in QuickBooks will not feed back to Houzz Pro.
Yeah, perfect. And then do we need to make any special accounts in Houzz Pro, or how does that look when that information goes into QuickBooks?
So when you first connect Houzz Pro and QuickBooks, in your QuickBooks account, in your chart of accounts, you'll see a default Houzz Pro bank account. You'll see a Houzz Pro credit card created, and then you'll see some other accounts like the Houzz Pro sales of product income, Houzz Pro cost of goods sold. You don't have to use our default accounts. You're more than welcome to set up, and obviously you would want to have your bank account, your real, your Wells Fargo checking, your American Express all set up. You can rename if you have a brand new QuickBooks, you're just starting fresh in QuickBooks. You can always rename the bank account, the Houzz bank account and credit card. But as far as setup, Houzz will set up the accounts that you need, but it is up to you to go in and adjust your mapping. So if you have your Wells Fargo bank account set up in QuickBooks, make sure you go change your deposit account from the Houzz Pro bank account to your Wells Fargo, so your payments are going to the right account.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. That's great information. Thank you. Let's go into, let me go back to sharing my screen with you guys. Want to talk to you guys about financing options. We're going through some very interesting times right now. And so some of the things that we've been doing behind the scenes over the last 6 to 12 months at our company is we've been enhancing the financing options that are available to you guys as professionals to help you with your jobs. So in your Houzz Pro software, under your financials tab, you will have the reference to your offer financing section. We're going to look first at the HELOC by Figure. In here, some information about Figure is a very large financial institution. You can learn about how that home equity line of credit works. And basically, when you send out an estimate or an invoice to a client and you've put in there a payment schedule, somewhere in the document, you're going to see, or they're going to see financing options available. And so they can literally apply for a HELOC here, and that'll be tied into you. So these are great options, especially if you're dealing with homeowners who love the idea of remodeling their house, maybe doing an addition to their house or even building a house. But now they're a little bit sensitive with the way things are going, and they're a little bit more inclined to hold on to their cash. These are great options. Great options to explore and to certainly recommend to them. So one of them, again, is the HELOC option here. The other section in here, or the other option, is the financing by Green Sky. Again, Green Sky is a large financial institution. Click on Get Started. It'll walk you through a process. It'll ask you questions about your company. And basically what you're doing is you're just applying to Green Sky. They will review your information and they will send you a link with an appointment time so that you can connect with them on a Zoom call to go over how their programs work and all that. And then you can ask them any questions about their programs, interest rates, and all that, and kind of go through them. Again, this is a great option. This is more of like a personal loan as opposed to a home equity line of credit. So some homeowners want to go this route for, again, anything that, let's say, is up to $100,000 or less. The HELOCs generally tend to go up to about 400,000 or less, or even a little bit more than that with them as well. So a lot of it depends on obviously the borrowers and their credit and all that. So, but again, these are great options to have as we're kind of going in through these kind of unique times. So, okay. All of this information, like I said before, if you've got more questions, reach out to your customer service rep, either your client onboarding specialist or your customer success manager, and kind of review that with them to see how they can help you answer any questions you might have as well. And then let's go into the 3D floor plans. I know lots of questions are always asked about our floor plans. Number of ways to create a floor plan. So there is the manual way of where you're creating the floor plans within the system. We've got templates set up in the floor plan managers. So for example, like kitchen templates, I think they've got about 10 different types of templates. I love these templates because they're so versatile in its use. Some of these I would use as a presentation tool. So for example, let's say you're meeting with a client that had kind of a U-shaped kitchen, and maybe there was talk of creating an island. You could go into this one. There's a little preview window here that you could see what it looks like in both the 2D and 3D view from it. Let's say we want to use this one as a presentation tool. The way I would use it is when you guys hire us to do your home remodeling project, one of the things we do is we sit down with you, we look at your floor plan, we actually scan your floor plan, and we show you your floor plan as it is, and then we create a design for it by using our 3D models. And now you're going through this, kind of showing them how you work, and the walkthrough is probably one of the most powerful parts of this presentation. So imagine us sitting down, going over your kitchen or your bathrooms, getting a preview of what we want it to look like. And that way you can kind of give us your feedback, like, are we going in the right direction with the style, with the patterns, with the colors, with the flooring and the cabinets and all that. And that's where you get that connection with your audience, with your clients, where they give you that feedback. Again, you can use this as a presentation tool of how we work. That's one aspect. The other is you've obviously let's say you want to create a floor plan for them. So maybe you've done from scratch, you've taken the measurements of the room. And so you're going to go in here, you're going to design the kind of look that they want. And again, going through these 3 different views, you can now put together your presentation. Again, the blue color, this is not for the faint of heart. But again, this illustrates the power of being able to change things. So as you're going through these floor plans, you can click on the items as you're adding them from our library. You can determine the type of panel styles you're using for the furniture. Are there any finishes, like any colors that you're using, or even like the drawer handles, or like the kind of material that you're using for the knobs, the handles, things like that. So again, you can add a lot of detail. Some of these come with preloaded sizes. Others of these, you can customize the sizes. So again, just depends on the specifics or the specific item of what you can do. But again, it's just a great way to not only use it as a presentation tool, but also use it to kind of figure out what your client wants and what kind of changes you're going to recommend. Okay, in the floor plans, when you're working with these floor plans, all the walls should be connected. If they're not connected, this is what happens. You end up losing, there's no flooring here because it doesn't see this as a complete room. So when you have these like red dots, orange dots here at the ends, it's just letting you know, hey, there's a wall. You need to connect this. So you can use your pencil simply to connect these walls. And again, now we've got access to our room. So again, we can go back in here and determine what kind of flooring we want to use. Keep in mind things like flooring and colors, they're just examples of the kind of material. So if we go for like, we can do laminate and look through our selections of anything from the grays to the browns to the cherries and go from there. And again, if you're with your client, this is something you can do if you've got a laptop with you. What I would do is like if they say, hey, do you have anything that's lighter? So again, you can show them this and go, okay, when you're lighter, are we looking at oak light like this or something a little bit more natural? As you're making these changes, you're getting the feedback from your clients about, yeah, that's much better, or let's look at some other options. So again, you've got access to a lot of different materials, which is really neat. So as well as like the solid hardwoods as well. Okay. Also in the floor plans, first thing you want to do is you want to build out kind of the structure, the walls, if you will. Once you've added the walls here in the structure items, this is where you can go and select doors, windows, openings. So for example, let's say there's an example here of a, let's use this one. So I've got the door here. I'm going to decide where I place it. And when I place it, I can determine, does this open out to in to out? I can determine which way, left to right, right to left, how it opens. Once I select, let's say I'm putting a door here, again, I can add the finishes. Actually, let's go back to I like dark espresso, and we're going to use the brush metal. So let's say I set my door up and I'm like, you know what? I want to create another one like this that I'm going to put on the other side. And we're simply going to flip this so it opens in kind of the same direction, or we're going to change the way it opens. So here we have it opening from left to right, and this one we have it opening from right to left. So again, like when I go back into the dollhouse view, now I can see how the doors kind of look in that setting, which is really neat. So same thing like in the walkthrough, again, I can kind of bring this to life, right? And the neat thing is, again, let's say this is what their original floor plan looked at, where they had a wall here, and then the next wall goes into the family room. I can go back into my structural items, and I can go into, like, let's say my wall openings and go, okay, let me add an opening here. This opens up into the family room. This is one of those examples where I can determine the custom length and width of this opening. So let's say I go 140 inches. That's pretty big. We're going to go actually a little bit more. Let's add a little bit more to that. There we go. Now we come back in here. There's our opening. Again, even for illustration purposes, like, okay, there's our opening. So again, if we go back to the floor plan, and let's say from this floor plan, we're going to, okay, let's add that family room. You see those red guidelines, those are going to give you your guides to horizontal and vertical positions, right? So again, if we kind of want to stay in that same, let's say flooring type, well, let's say if we get close, there we go. So now when we go in the dollhouse, there's our great room. And again, don't forget, I can customize this opening. So I can make it taller so that it you know, goes, let's say 96 inches. So it looks as tall as I need it to look. So I can customize that. I can create finishes to it as well. So if I want to stay in kind of that, let's say dark espresso trim, I can add the trim feature to that just by doing that. So again, it's kind of a great way to be able to do that. And then you've got generic products in here. This is where you can go either by rooms or by types of things that you want to add in here. This is where you start to add the decor, right? So anything from, again, furniture, appliances, any kind of piece. So let's say we want to put a bowling alley in here. Again, we can fit a bowling alley in there as an example. So all kinds of different options in here that you can use to kind of create the design you're looking for. And then you've got source. Source is a direct link to the Houzz marketplace. This is an area where you can buy products, materials, appliances. Again, you can go into the different categories, go into their subcategories, and there's even other categories you can go to and go, okay, let's see if I can find something. Or you go into the search bar and start typing out what you're looking for. So if you come across a product that you think, hey, this would be a great piece that we can use in the room, again, we can add this item to there. There we go. Let's add this one. So again, that'll give us a good perspective of what that looks like in there. And again, some of these items we can customize the lengths, widths, and heights of them. And then here you'll see there's a link to that vendor's website. So if I click on that, it'll take me to the product page. And so you guys are all part of the Houzz trade program. So you'll be able to see your discounted trade price here, and then you should see the retail price here, right? It's hiding the discounted price here, but it's 18% less than the retail price. So again, let's go back to that 3D floor plan. Your client clicks on this, they actually see the retail price. They don't see this reference at all. Only you see that reference right there. Again, a great thing. So if you're putting this, any of these products into your floor plan, selection boards, things like that. And again, if the client likes what you've recommended, you already know what you can go out there and buy it for. You would go into the marketplace, buy it on the client's behalf, and then have it shipped to their property, right? And again, you're obviously charging the client the retail price for the item. In some cases, just so you know, in the trade program, these discounts will vary from vendor to vendor. Sometimes they're 5%, sometimes I've seen 60%. It all depends on the item, time of year, the season. So all of those factors come into play. So again, just a great opportunity to kind of help you build your business. So, and then down here is you can also upload a drawing. Let's say you had a floor plan. If you had a floor plan, one of the things that I would recommend is you don't want to have anything here. So let's say, for example, we delete all of this stuff in here. So you want to be able to upload a floor plan from nothing. And you can use that upload feature here where all you need is access to a PDF file of a floor plan. Let's see if we find one right here. Let's use this one. And then you'll be able to trace that floor plan. One of the things I do recommend, I'm going to pull up this one because this is a great example. So here's a floor plan to a first floor of a 3,000 square foot home. So here's what I do recommend. When you're bringing this information in is, let's put that at 50 feet. When you're bringing the information in, I don't necessarily recommend you trace the entire floor plan. What you want to do is find specific rooms that you're working on and trace those rooms. For example, like kitchens or bathrooms. So if you download the information for all of this, it gets a little tricky when you're looking at it in the dollhouse view. You want this, see, this is where it gets a little tricky, where you start to see this large floor plan and be able to maneuver from one room to another. You really kind of want to avoid that. So what you want to be able to do is just simply select certain rooms that you want to only download. So in that way that it just, you can focus on those specific rooms, which is really great. So again, to do that, all you would do is, first thing I do is recommend is building out the walls. And then what you can do afterwards is add in, like once you've got kind of that skeleton of that room, what then you can do is then add the doors and windows. So again, first thing is build out the skeleton of where the walls go. And then once you're done doing both the exterior and interior of that room or those rooms, then you start to add the details about the furniture, the doors, the windows, things like that. So once you're done with this mode, then now you can use this floor plan again to make your changes and enhancements too. That's always such a great feature. And then from this, once you've created a floor plan, you can literally create an estimate from these floor plans. So when you click on the estimate, it evaluates everything it sees in the floor plans. And for example, like here's ceiling. Well, we're not going to be doing any work on the ceiling. So we can eliminate that from our estimate because that doesn't really apply to what we're doing. But it'll give us, like in flooring, for example, or walls, it'll give us the total square foot area of the floor plan. And then if there was any materials that we had used, let's say like hardwood floors or tile, it would show us the square footage of those sections that had that material. And it would tell us which materials we're using. So that would be a part of our estimate. Same thing with walls, right? We're not doing anything in the walls, so we can eliminate all that. Once we have that, we go to preview estimate. It'll show us a breakdown of all the items in here, the quantities, the unit type. If there's any costs associated with those items or materials, it would show here. And then from here, we would simply go in and create an estimate. Again, which is great because it just takes that information. So you can use the floor plan to build it out, not only as a presentation tool, but to build it out afterwards and use that information to create an estimate. In the estimate, here's that attached document as a reference for the client to see. And then up above here, here's all the details, right? All the sliding doors, all the flooring, all the cabinets, windows, whatever information that we got from the floor plan will be in this estimate right in here, which is great. And again, it's broken down into the various groups, which is nice. So, and then again, let's go back to our floor plan. You have access to what's called My Products. In this section, again, this is a link to our Clipper tool. So the Clipper tool you'll find in your, actually in your settings down here. And all you do is click on Clipper tool. That allows you, once you download the Clipper tool onto your website, onto your web browser page, you can go on any vendor's website. Wayfair, Home Depot, Restoration Hardware, anybody that you use that supplies you with materials or appliances or furniture, and you want to go to the product specific page of that item and download everything from pictures, pricing, description, SKUs, dimensions, all the information you're going to find in that product page. And you'll be able to do that going to any website. That's what allows you to, when you're working on, again, on the floor plans, use that specific information and apply it to your floor plan, which again is just a great option. So once you have it in your library, like in some of these examples, you'll see where it says convert 3D. In other words, this is in my library, but I haven't converted it to an image yet. This one I did earlier. It's going to ask me to review the item once because it's trying to convert this to a 3D object. And so I'm going to put in the dimensions, everything from like the width and the height. And let's say this. When you put the bad measurements in, like you can see here, it doesn't let me move forward, right? Or I can even go back to the product page. So if I click on that link, it takes me back into that product page and I can look at the dimensions of that item. And this is where it'll tell me all that information. So again, just kind of a great way to be able to use this information to add to your floor plans. So, and that's kind of how we would do a floor plan. This information I can share with my clients through their dashboard. I can also send them an email with a link to this. Clients can only review the information. They can't make any changes to it. So when you send them an email and it's got the link, again, they'll be able to review what it is you did in both the 2D, 3D, as well as the walkthrough view. So they'll be able to look at that in either of those changes. And again, as you can see, they can't make any changes to that structure. So any questions on the floor plan?
I know we have a few questions, but I think we're a little bit over time. So we will be able to follow up with any unanswered questions. Of course, you are always welcome to chat support or contact support if you need further clarification on a feature. I know we had a lot of questions about the Clipper and change orders. That is being the Clipper as well as selections board, POs, change orders, global tracker, selections tracker. That's going to be in tomorrow's session. So if you're not signed up, please sign up. If you're not able to make it, you'll get a recording of that. And then, like I said, if you have further questions, need further clarification, feel free to contact support so you can get those questions answered.
There was one last thing. I do want to suggest, I know a lot of you have a lot more questions about things. In your Houzz Pro software, at the bottom right corner, we do encourage you, go to the Help Center here. Lots of great material in this section. It'll show you all the tools in the system, the 3 most popular questions to each of the tools. So if your question is one of those 3, click on that question. Or if it's not, and you want to learn about, let's say, selection boards, click on the picture. It'll take you into that section, and then you'll see the popular questions. Some of those pages have subcategories in them. So take a look at them. And then usually at the bottom of each of those pages, you'll see any additional videos that you could watch at your own pace. So also in the Help Center, let me go back to here. In the bottom, there's great information here about client communication, team collaboration, integrations. Go through them, lots of great material that'll walk you through those sections. And then down here is our video library. We have about 50 different videos. Scroll through the right. See if you come across some topic that's of interest to you. Simply click on it. It'll show you the video. That way you can watch it as often as you'd like. This is really some great material there.
Great.
And then that pretty much covers it. Andy, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you all for joining us. We hope you enjoyed today's presentation. And as Andy said, tomorrow we have another lineup of great material coming. Please join us at tomorrow's presentation as we go into more deep dive in some of our other topics. Everyone have a great day.
Thank you.